So we have waited incredibly patiently while the rest of the world has watched Annihilation, but now it is time for us to talk about it because we have been annihilated.
Yeah. So yes, we have finally seen Annihilation on Netflix, of course, because everywhere in the world except for the United States it was released there because the studio lost confidence in the film after thinking it was kind of too smart, and it kind of got dumped on Netflix. Now this is the new film from Alex Garland, who is the director of Ex Machina that came out in 2015. This film stars Natalie Portman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Tessa Thompson, Gina Rodriguez, Oscar Isaac, and Tuva Novotny. I think I'm saying that right.
And Annihilation is a sci-fi film. Essentially,
Oh, yeah.
This sci-fi catastrophe phenomenon event happens, and it is then hidden from the rest of the world. And then we have our players, our characters, going and figuring things out. We really don't want to talk much about the story of this film because you don't need to know much.
This is one where we watched the trailer, and obviously it was our favourite trailer of last year. The trailer was absolutely exceptional, but it was the kind of thing we wish we hadn't even seen that, because it's a film where the less you know about it going into it, the better it will be for you. Now I just want to straight up get this out of the way. This is in my at least top 20 films I've ever seen. And the fact I was robbed of seeing it in a cinema is something I'm never going to get over. But Annihilation is everything that I feel like I've wanted in a sci-fi movie my entire life, and even more than that. This movie is like, it's like a dream odyssey through... I don't even know where to begin.
I'm right there with you, buddy. I mean, this film absolutely did me in. I'm really excited to actually kind of dive into talk about it because there's a couple things that I feel a little bit iffy about, but look, this film, I'm going to say it, basically is a freaking masterpiece.
Yes.
And there is so much to get out of it, so much to talk about. So, I mean, look, let's just try, I suppose.
So the first thing to really dive into with this movie is the delivery of this kind of sci-fi story. This is the type of sci-fi where it's wound incredibly tightly. It's the kind of movie where quite often people will watch and say, nothing's happening. But it's not the type of movie where the storytelling is about action or about large moments where you can see parts clearly moving. This is a movie about delivering tiny details at a very, very controlled pace and having those details contrast and conflict with each other, and then it's up to you to start to add them together as you go along. It's the type of movie where you're not supposed to feel as if it's an easy experience that washes over you. It's the kind of movie that you have to actively engage in and feel all these parts locked together as you process them. The film has what is essentially a really simple ending that I'm sure a lot of people will be confused by, but it's the kind of film where if you just kind of follow along, you're always on the back foot, but as long as you just try to keep up and keep trying to kind of catalog all the elements as they pop up and associate them with the right areas of what else is going on, everything will just slowly click together. And watching a movie do that, I mean, we ask for smart sci-fi all the time. It's something that audiences do. And when we get it, we appreciate that shit. Because that's what this movie is. This is the kind of movie we demand all the time.
And this is the type of sci-fi that we rarely get, and that's why it's so exciting. I mean, like, for us to get similar sci-fi films like this, we have to travel back in time to the time of Kubrick or Tarkovsky, and that's why so many people out there are relating this film to the works of them, whether it be Solaris or Stalker or 2001: A Space Odyssey. Because the way Alex Garland has captured this film and captured this world is very similar to that, with ambiguity, but also with patience and this kind of just excellent exploration of humankind and sci-fi and world and...
It is really kind of like a mind-blowing experience to talk about. It's been almost a day since we have seen the movie, and while I feel like I've kind of accessed what it's about and I've pieced it together, when it comes to actually talking about it in a non-scripted format like this, it just kind of all disappears on you because what you're kind of trying to handle here is so complex. It's all these ideas that can't possibly be contained inside like a single thought train, because as soon as you start thinking about one thing, it starts to blow out into another direction. And I'm not saying this movie, as much as it does feel ambiguous while you're watching it, and the smaller thematic details of it are definitely ambiguous, the overall overarching story here, which is essentially a story about the nature of people being self-destructive and trying to find a way to overcome that. Can you overcome your inherent desire to cause it like a negative impact on yourself? Can you overcome that and come through the other side? That is the focus here, and it makes a clear, defined standpoint on what happens by the end of the movie.
Absolutely no surprises here. The acting is absolutely out of this world. I mean, Oscar Isaac is a bloody god, Natalie Portman is a bloody goddess, and seeing those two together in a relationship was absolutely everything. But along with them, we have an incredible supporting cast who deliver such fantastic performances with their characters, given that as much as they're very well written, they don't have much to say throughout the film.
These are the type of performances as well where you often hear people be like, oh, they're bad, they're boring, they're not doing anything. But it's that type of controlled acting where you feel that all the actors have to move as a cohesive unit because communicating the ideas is paramount to the success of the film and everything it is trying to communicate. The actors really have all these thematic ideas that are embedded in their character, and communicating that is the focus. It's not about the actors going out and filling their characters with a whole lot of fun, quippy, kind of smart dialogue like you see in a movie like Aliens or, you know, other type of sci-fi movies like that where you have a team going in and doing something. It's not about kind of these people being individuals and kind of being these super likable type characters. That's just not how this works. It's all about focusing on drawing our attention to the ideas at the heart of this movie. Each character represents a different type of self-destruction, and it's imperative to their roles that every single time the actors are drawing attention to those tendencies.
Now, the soundtrack, I mean, was, you know, it was alright. Soundtracks are at their best when they kind of just complete the film, I suppose, and raise everything emotionally and add to the world of it and add to the world design of it. And here, this soundtrack does it absolutely fantastically.
I don't want to spoil stuff that happens with the soundtrack, but the soundtrack in itself is an experience unlike anything I've ever heard.
It goes to places that you just would not expect.
Do you like that in a sci-fi?
What? But it works, and it's like, okay, well done for having the balls to try that.
And we haven't talked yet about the visuals. Now, I want to go out and say straight away that this is one of the best looking films I've ever seen, and it also put me in that kind of zone where I'm sitting there thinking, how? I don't know, like when you're looking at a frame of this movie and the light is doing so many incredible things to do with reflections and refractions, inside joke for people who have seen the movie, it's constantly doing these things that feel unnatural, feel complex, feel like things I haven't seen before. It feels like I'm in some form of surreal world where colors are combating each other in a single frame, and I can't work out how they've lit that. Where does the light end and the visual effects begin? I just don't know. Rob Hardy's work on this, as well as the entire team working in the cinematography department and the VFX department, like holy shit. And pretty much everyone who has frothed this movie out there has gone on about the last 30 minutes. I want to dial that back and say the entire movie. But more specifically, if we want to go from maybe about the 3/4 mark, there's a scene or a sequence which is effectively one of the top 5 most terrifying things I have ever seen. I was sweating so much watching it, and yes, it is like peak summer heat here in Australia right now, and that was not the ideal viewing experience. But honestly, it has one of the most terrifying sequences with one of the most terrifying creations I've ever seen on screen. Like, holy shit.
And it wasn't just that single creation either. I mean, the creativity across the board in this film to kind of make this world come alive is absolutely extraordinary. I mean, the attention to detail in the VFX department, just well done. And as I said at the start, I did actually have kind of a couple issues with the film, but I mean, look, it's a weird one because maybe in time when I rewatch this, I might be like, yeah, you know what, Jay? But essentially, I actually kind of found, and this is a weird thing to say, the film almost too tight. What does that mean? Well, I just found myself paying attention to absolutely every single detail. So when kind of the surprises or the twists or the turns are coming along, it's not that I wasn't necessarily surprised, everything was just there, and I was like, oh, okay.
It's part of us being told for ages that it was going to be like that. We had like 3 weeks of people telling us like it's going to be like, oh, it's super complex, it's super tricky, it's kind of too smart for normal audiences, blah, 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 blah. And in that, it took away my emotional investment in some of the supporting characters. Some of their choices, in particular Gina Rodriguez's character, I kind of find at times making stupid decisions for the sake of a character making stupid decisions. And look, it was justified by the end, and I can understand that, and we've had discussions already talking about, you know, it does actually make sense. But I just kind of found, whilst watching it, I was like,
So that brings me to my next point, where I kind of feel as though those issues could have been brushed away, is if the film actually had a longer running time, if it found a way to actually just be a little bit more patient and present with the world.
Well, with more time, with an extra 15, 20, half an hour.
15, 20, 30 minutes. I mean, extending the film in the way, or the likes of Stalker by Tarkovsky, where you've got characters in this world exploring it in a really soft sort of way, and they're on a journey. I would have just loved that. I would have loved to have more time with these characters in this incredibly beautifully created world. However, at the same time, I do understand, look, it's an amazing 2-hour film, and it is so goddamn well paced, so don't get me wrong there.
And I definitely agree with that. While I think the 2 hours is perfect, and it's perfect. I could have easily gone for more, and I think with more time, it could have been even better, to the point that my head would have genuinely exploded. Because that's how I've already felt. I haven't had a single thought since watching the film that has not been about this movie. It's completely occupied my mind, and I don't want to think about anything else. This movie really is everything to me right now. And so if I go to score it, I feel like everything I've said has spoken for itself. But of course, for me at least, this is a perfect movie. It's a 10, if not progressively even beyond that over time.
And so for me, this film's going to sit at a 9.8 for the time being. Yeah, alright, put your middle finger up at me. I don't give a damn. But either way, it was one hell of a film, and it's right up there in my all-time list. And please, just check it out.
Just
check it out.
dive in.
If you live in the US and you don't watch it in the cinema, and then you go ahead and watch it on Netflix, no words.
You should have done it for us! You should have taken one for the team and seen it for us! So that was our review of the incredible Annihilation. Have you seen it yet?
Did you like it?
Did you hate it?
Did you like this video?
Of course you did.
Create more banter.
If so, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel down there somewhere.
And don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter, all at Breaking Banter.
And a Patreon as well, because we have one of those. That was cool. That
Boom.
finger tap. Boom.
Wow,
boom.
lightsabers.